And then the whole audience started singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, but it had like death metal growls in it. It was so wholesome and fun to have this room full of metalheads in their battle jackets and corpse paint all singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer together. Corpsegrinder was smiling and sort of like conducting the orchestra. Welcome, metalheads. I'm the host of Heavy Metal Philosophy and writer for Metal Digest, John Barbas. And y'all, I am sore. I am dehydrated. I've got a headache. I'm in pain. And I could not be happier. I saw Cannibal Corpse this weekend. Oh man, if you ever get the chance to see Cannibal Corpse, go see them. They're not going to be able to do what they did this weekend for very much longer. Don't miss out. Go see them the first chance you get. I didn't go see Slayer on their farewell tour, and now that will always be one of my life's regrets. If you get a chance to see one of your favorite OG bands, do it. Drop everything and do it. So first off, let me say, the show that I saw was December the 9th in Athens, Georgia. Normally I go see concerts in Atlanta, Georgia, because that's closest to me. Athens is a little bit out of the way. But when I saw that Cannibal Corpse was touring, I was like, okay, well, I'm definitely going. Let me look at where all they're going to be and pick which concert I'm going to go to, hoping that there would be an Atlanta date. And at first I was dismayed because they weren't coming to Atlanta. But then when I saw that they were going to be in Athens, a light bulb went in my head. Because my brother lives in North Carolina, and he lives on the western side of North Carolina, which is directly north of Georgia. So if you're in North Georgia, you're pretty close to where my brother lives in North Carolina. You don't have to drive all the way through South Carolina to get there. So I thought, wow, okay, well, actually Athens is pretty close to my brother, so maybe we could meet in Athens and go to the Cannibal Corpse concert together, which we did. And it was so cool to share this experience with my brother. And this was my first time in Athens, and let me tell you, I love it. It's now one of my favorite southern cities. I mean, just so much going on, so many things to do. The University of Georgia's right there. I visited the campus. It was so cool. Beautiful people everywhere. A sweet ass record store, delicious food. I had a great time in Athens. Then we get to the venue, the Georgia Theater, nice intimate venue, great for a heavy metal concert. Me and my brother and then a good mutual friend of ours started our pregame on, started drinking, and the first band up was Black Anvil. Now, I am not really the biggest black metal fan. This was a straight up black metal band, full on corpse paint, upside down crosses painted on their foreheads. So I really don't know how to judge if they were like really good at black metal. It was straight up black metal. You know, a lot of times when I shout out black metal albums on the show here, it's usually black metal that's different. It's usually like something like Imperial Triumphant or Goeria or something, you know. But the straight up black metal, I have a hard time discerning what's really good and what's like everything else. My palate in black metal is not as refined as my palate in death metal. As far as performance is concerned, they put on a good show, so, you know, I enjoyed it. It just isn't my thing. Next up was something I was so excited about. Immolation. I love Immolation. The lead singer of Immolation is like my top 5, I'd say, death metal singers. He's just got such a deep voice. And their lead guitar player is one of the most evil looking dudes in metal, just bald with a warlock goatee. And he's definitely got the most unique stage presence I've seen in a death metal show. He doesn't have any hair, so he doesn't really do the headbanging thing. So instead of headbanging, he does this weird, like, robotic motions, like he's casting a spell. I mean, he looks like an evil wizard. And I've never seen anybody perform on stage like that. It was very entertaining to watch. I will say, though, I was slightly disappointed in the sound of Immolation. Like most of the heavy parts, and of course the vocalists sounded excellent. The drums were deep, and at first I was like, yeah, this sounds great. But every time the lead would play, the tone just sounded kind of thin in the building, and I was a little worried that it was the acoustics of the room making the highs sound bad. Or maybe the sound guy had the highs dialed in wrong, and all of the leads they didn't sound right to me. They didn't really seem to be on time. I didn't know if maybe there was a problem with the monitors, and we'll get to that because that did become an issue later in the show. So probably not Immolation's best performance. Now, that being said, of course, you got to grade on a curve. I was coming into it with super high expectations for one of my favorite bands. You know, if this had been a young up-and-coming band, I probably wouldn't have even noticed. But because I had such high expectations, maybe just the slightest little thing bothered me, but it just didn't sound quite right to me. Now, the next band that came up is one of those OG bands, Dark Funeral. Now, like I've said, straight up black metal, I'm not really the biggest fan, but I respect the OGs of the genre, so I was kind of excited to see them. Now, with that being said, I thoroughly enjoyed their set for the simple fact that they put on such a good live performance. Their frontman has that role down. He knows exactly when to talk. He knows exactly what to say. And anytime that he wasn't singing, he had these like slow moves, or he would just stop in a static pose that looked evil. You know, they're not death metal, so his job's not really to headbang and thrash about. He let the other band members handle the headbanging, and he would just strike a pose like an evil tyrant. It was kind of cool. You know, black metal guys always have that presentation down pat, and their drummer, holy shit, Dark Funeral's drummer puts on a crazy show. But that's not what we're here for. We're here for Cannibal Corpse. Yo, Cannibal Corpse started and they just beat us to death. Y'all know Cannibal Corpse. There's no ballads. There's no like, oh, this is our artsy side. It was just brutality, crushing my neck, sending bodies flying everywhere. I've been a metalhead for over 20 years, and I promise you, I have never at a show seen this amount of people being carried out of the pit. I saw like 3 people get carried out. I saw one person who was full on unconscious being carried out by like 3 or 4 people, like straight up limp. I was like, oh shit, I hope that person's all right. And I saw one person, he was standing, but brain wasn't there. He was knocked out on his feet. They started bringing him past, and I was like, hey man, are you all right? And he just was like, I don't know, kangaroos don't wear typewriters. He didn't know where he was at. He didn't know what he was saying. He could barely walk. The person with their arm around him was having to help them take short steps to get him out of there. I really hope and pray that nobody was injured, because when that pit started going, it was crazy. It's been a long time since I've seen a pit that violent. Now, when I say that violent, let me clarify. It wasn't a hardcore show. Nobody was crowd killing. Nobody was throwing punches and kicks like a fucking moron. It was a standard heavy metal mosh pit, but it was just cranked up to 11. I mean, those dudes and girls were going the fuck off. Full energy, full speed, not like just kind of bumping into each other. A violent mosh pit. It was insanity. And I understand why, because damn, Cannibal Corpse is heavy as shit live. I mean, I've been listening to Cannibal Corpse records for, again, over 20 years. But that was my first time seeing them live, and I can't put it into words. I don't adequately have the vocabulary without using hyperbole to properly describe how much heavier it is live. How much more energy was in the room with everybody losing their minds. It's some of the most fun that I've had at a concert all year. Easily. George was so much fun. He was so enthusiastic and jovial. He just looked like he was genuinely having a good time. He was smiling and joking with the audience. Somebody gave him a Corpsegrinder trading card. Another person gave him a stuffed animal. wholesome while beating our heads in. And then, man, Eric Rutan, after watching him perform live, he has moved way up towards the top of my list of all-time favorite guitar players. You know, I was complaining about Immolation's lead guitar player's guitar tone. Eric's guitar tone was soaring and fat, and every lead he played was just so fast and technical, and he did it flawlessly. I mean, it was so clean, not one misfret note. You know, I mean, obviously they're pros, they've been doing this forever, but still, how clean those licks were. I was blown away. He was headbanging while he was doing it. I'm so glad I was in front of Eric on the stage. Now, that being said, his guitar kind of shorted out a couple of times. And because I was in front of him and not in front of Rob, every time his guitar would short out, it's like, it almost sounded like there was no guitar in the mix for like a split second. It would just be like a half a second where it would go out and then come back in. It was kind of jarring. You know, he reached down and messed with the input jack and kind of kicked around on his pedal board a little bit, and it came back, and I was like, okay, cool. But then it started happening again, and at one point, they had to stop the show, and the road crew had to come out and start messing with things, trying to figure it out, because they needed to get this resolved. And at first, I was like, oh man, that sucks. But then I remembered, just a few weeks ago, I had that conversation with High Command's lead guitar player, and he was saying how when stuff happens at concerts like that, when a band member is missing and somebody has to fill in, it's kind of cool. It's kind of a historical moment, and you're seeing something that, you know, most people that have seen that tour haven't seen. And I was like, well, yeah, that's a great perspective. And so immediately I thought about that conversation I had, and I was like, okay, I'm seeing something that, you know, most of the people that have seen this tour haven't seen. That's pretty cool. Let me just enjoy this for what it is. Well, it got even weirder because it started to get long. The road crew started like actually swapping out stage monitors. So they were having to like trace cables, and, you know, it was starting to become like quite a long delay. You know, eventually Corpsegrinder had to address it, and he was kind of joking around with the audience, and people were chanting for there to be a bass solo, and Alex was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So eventually it got to where it was so long, Corpsegrinder was like, I mean, like, I guess I could sing a lullaby, and everybody laughed, and he's like, but I'm not going to do that. And then he was like, well, maybe I'll sing a Christmas song, and everybody's like, yeah, sing a Christmas song. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't know the words. And then the whole audience started singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, but it had like death metal growls in it. It was so wholesome and fun to have this room full of metalheads in their battle jackets and corpse paint all singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer together. Corpsegrinder was smiling and sort of like conducting the orchestra, and I was just so wrapped up in the moment. I had such a big smile on my face that I completely didn't even think about it. And then I was like, right towards the end, I was like, oh shit, I should film this. I got out my phone, I hit record, and then it was done. I was like, damn, I hate that I didn't get that for you all. But it was so cool. And then, you know, they got it figured out. Cannibal Corpse started playing again, and I feel like it made it even heavier because we had this reprieve, we had this fun moment, and then we got our skulls smashed into the floor. You know, Corpsegrinder did his trademark bit right before they did I Come Blood, where he's like, this is the headbanging song, y'all try to keep up with me if you can, but you're not going to be able to. And of course, nobody was able to. And then after the song was over, he made the championship belt motion. And then he got on the mic and he was like, I'm 52 years old and I just whipped all of your asses. And he was right. And the crazy thing is that wasn't even the highlight of the show. You know, they played all my favorites, including off the new record. They played my 2021 Riff of the Year, Condemnation Contagion. I was so happy about that. And I'm just happy overall. I'm going to be buzzing about this show for days. So what's my review for the Cannibal Corpse show? Well, let me put it this way. I remember hearing Cannibal Corpse for the first time back in the 90s. And this was in my metal infancy. So this is as my taste in metal is starting to get heavier and heavier and heavier. You know, I started out with AC/DC, went my way into Metallica, and now I'm starting to get into Cannibal Corpse. And I remember thinking as a little kid back in the 90s, man, how could metal possibly get any heavier than this? And of course, you know, metal has evolved, and we've got gent and metalcore and deathcore and all these modern styles of metal. And of course, they're always trying to raise the ante and get it heavier and heavier. Well, after that show was over, I immediately remembered that memory from the 90s, thinking, how can metal get any heavier than this? And I thought to myself, I was right. It can't. It absolutely cannot get any heavier than that. Go see Cannibal Corpse. Now, let me tell you something real quick before we go. I'm actually going to have a bonus episode for you this week. I had a different plan for this week's podcast, but I had to tell you all about this show, so I bumped that one up. We're going to make that a bonus episode. It'll come out either tomorrow or the day after. Plus, it'll make up for not having my Saturday episode that I always do, breaking down the top 5 new metal albums. I want to show my appreciation to you all because I put up a poll that only subscribers can see, asking like, okay, I'm going to be at the Cannibal Corpse concert. I'm not going to be able to do the top 5 like I do every weekend. What do y'all want me to do? And I put up a bunch of different options that I would do to cover the top 5 of the week. And one of the options was take the weekend off. And 80% of y'all were like, dude, take the weekend off. And I got comments was like, we appreciate it. Take the weekend off. And I appreciate y'all being so positive. It's been such a great year. And with the album of the year episode that we did last week, so many new people have come on board, and I want to welcome y'all aboard. One of the most positive communities in all of metal. We love that shit here. And of course, I want to thank some of these OGs that have been around all year and the year before that. Most of y'all were the ones commenting saying, dude, you've been doing it every weekend. Take one weekend off. Thank you. I didn't check social media. I just posted a thing or two and then just put my phone down. I just enjoyed the weekend with my brother and hung out with Athens, unplugged from the Matrix, just enjoying life. It was fantastic. And now I'm recharged and I'm ready to go. Can't wait to level this thing up in 2023. Make sure you catch the bonus episode. And if you missed the album of the year episode, you can click here on YouTube to catch that. And if you need gift ideas for metalheads, you can click here on YouTube to catch that. And if you're listening audio only, don't worry. Just click the links in the description. I very much appreciate you. Let's end the episode with my 2021 riff of the year, Condemnation Contagion. Oh man, y'all go see Cannibal Corpse. And as always, read philosophy, listen to metal. I love you.